channel, or welcome back to my channel. My name is Andy, sometimes Mouse, and I talk about books and book-related things, and today I'm giving you my part 2 of my very unhinged deep dive of the Inheritance games. I'm apologizing in advance if you see the ring light reflect on my glasses. Actually, I'm just going to go ahead and take them off. Because I have to use a ring light because I can't use my book lights for contrasted lighting. It's a whole thing, because otherwise you can't see the different color string. Alright, anyway. Diving in. If you don't know what the Hawthorne Legacy is, you should go ahead and watch my first video on the Inheritance games, which is the first book. This is the second video in which I will be talking about the Hawthorne Legacy, as seen here by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is a young adult mystery thriller series in which lots of things happen. In my first video, the light green string was things that were kind of already established and known and understood when the book plot starts getting into it, and then the dark green string was things that were slowly revealed. This time I am only just using blue string. I'm not alternating. If it seems like a different shade of blue, it probably is. I probably ran out of string. It means nothing. And this time I actually made note cards, summary notes, so that I would stop being all over the place, because editing that video I was like, wow, you look truly unwell. So moving on. When we last left off with Avery, she was left with this note, or Xander was realistically left with this note that says, "Find Toby," which implies that Tobias knew that Toby was alive and that he needed to be found. At this current moment, Avery also has dug through Tobias's desk, found a secret locked file that included her birth certificate and photos of herself as she grew up over time. In her birth certificate, her name was, her father's signature, Ricky's name, was highlighted. As she observes it more closely, she registers that this handwriting is not her father's handwriting, but is in fact someone else's handwriting. That's suspicious, that's weird. Now, how do you find Toby? What do you look for to find Toby? Well, you should probably start with how he allegedly died. He allegedly died in a fire with three of his best friends. I can count. With 3 of his best friends. Allegedly best friends. That would be Kaylee Rooney, David Gilding, and Colin Wright. These names are important. You're going to want to remember them later. That's why they got on the wall. Anybody on this wall? Important. The house was caught on fire. The only bodies that were found were the 3 listed above, and the press put the blame on Kaylee Rooney, implying that she was a terrible drug addict and a drugs dealer, and that she was the one who started the fire. The group collectively realized that with this Find Toby note that Tobias always knew Toby was alive, and so they go and decide to look at the original will. The original will, if you recall, was written 20 years ago after the summer that Toby died. In that original will, Sky and Zara, are sisters of Toby and daughters of Tobias, were left absolutely nothing except for the compass, so that Sky will always find her true north, and a wedding band, I think it's her father's wedding band, for Zara, something about love withstanding all, and that's it. No money, no nothing. In the second will, the one that was created a year ago, they at least got something out of it, right? So they don't get anything out of it. So they go back to the first will and decide to look at what's different, who's getting money here. So other than the grandson's money, so disregard that entirely, John and the Laughlins are getting the same things they were always going to get. Sky and Zara are just written out of it. Toby doesn't get anything, etc., because he's allegedly dead. And that's it, except everything goes to these 4 specific charities. Now, these 4 charities are the Camden House, which is a rehab center, the Allport Institute, which specializes in Alzheimer's, Collins Way, which I think also specializes in some kind of memory or drug abuse, I'm not really sure, and Rockaway Watch Society. I don't know. I don't remember what this one specializes in. Honestly, it doesn't matter. Just keep those names in mind. In the meantime, that's literally in the meantime. Someone is pranking Avery's locker, which has now caused John Oren, her head of security, to put somebody to follow her around, basically a bodyguard for while she is at school. That would be Eli. You just need to know that she's a new bodyguard. His name is Eli. He follows her around day to day. Ricky is suddenly Daddy Ricky over here, who never he had no part to play really in the first book, but now he's much more relevant. If you don't remember, Ricky is Libby and Avery's biological father, allegedly. And Ricky is suddenly talking to the paparazzi, and he is basically saying, like, I'm gonna take custody of Avery. She should have never been in the custody of Libby, whatever, whatever. I just want to get to know my daughter. Except the crazy thing is he, you know, had an opportunity to take custody of Avery when Avery's mother died, and then he didn't. So, you know, that seems real misleading to me, that you just want custody, but then you didn't take it when you had an opportunity and your daughter was most vulnerable. I don't know, it seems weird, it seems suspicious. But suddenly talking to the paparazzi, pissing Avery off, making her very upset. Jameson, Grayson, Xander, and Avery go to the wing of the Hawthorne house to take down the bricks that are bricking up Toby's home. This is because, or Toby's wing of the house. This is because they figure there's got to be clues there that are relevant, and so they basically take a sledgehammer to it. It turns out that if you use a black light, I believe Toby was writing on the walls in invisible ink as a journal, and things are pretty standard or whatever, until you get to the line in which Toby says they lied. Toby also references, and this comes up a lot, I didn't put it on the wall because I don't really have a whole lot of things that are not people on the wall, but Toby references a lot a William Blake poem called The Poison Tree. It poisoned S and Z and me is also a really relevant line there, and he uses it to write in code. It's relevant throughout this book and the next book, but I didn't put it on the wall. I'll probably put it on the wall for the next book. I don't know, maybe I'll start putting objects on here for the next book, but this is where we're at with this. So he writes this line called "They lied," and then eventually, as you read through these journal entries on the wall, you discover that Toby was actually adopted. So Toby is biologically not Tobias and Alice's son. He is the youngest sibling, in case you need context for a chain of children. It's Zara, Sky, I believe, Zara, Sky, and then Toby, and Toby was adopted. And they also don't know if he was legally or illegally adopted, but that never really gets like touched on in full detail if it was like a legal adoption or not, which to me, when you're talking about like whether the will is relevant, then like wouldn't that be important? I don't know. Anyway, another important note is that Toby's handwriting matches the handwriting on Avery's birth certificate almost perfectly. So going back to the will, our old will over here, we have got the 4 charities as mentioned before. To note, in Camden House, Toby, David, and Colin all stayed in Camden House. Allport Institute has to do with memory, and there's some implication that maybe Toby doesn't know who he is, so maybe he lost his memory, something happened, he doesn't know who he is, and so that is what Avery believes that the Allport Institute is about. And Colin's Way. Now, think about the 3 names of the people that died in the fire: Kaylee Rooney, David Golding, and Colin Wright. Yep, you guessed it. Colin's Way was opened by Colin's uncle, Sheffield Grayson. Now, does the name Grayson sound familiar to you? It should, because that's also Grayson Hawthorne's first name. And it turns out that Sheffield Grayson is also, yeah, it's Grayson's dad. This lady, Sky, so good at naming her kids, right? So Sheffield Grayson is Grayson Hawthorne's father, and he also opened Colin's Way. And he hates the Hawthorns, hopes they all die in a fire or whatever. Again, I'm still not sure what Rockaway is for. Then we met Rebecca's mother. I believe her name is Mallory. It's not mentioned in the second book. As far as I'm aware, it's not mentioned in the second book, and I looked, but it is mentioned in the third book, so I believe her name is Mallory. She now has a card here, Mother Laughlin, because again, I did not know her first name. We meet her at a charity event for Emily's, like, it's around Emily's anniversary, death anniversary, and it's like some kind of auction to put a chapel in the school or something. So we meet Mother Laughlin. She's definitely an alcoholic, very much a drunk, and she, as she's drunkenly walking around, sobs that all her babies die. Now, everybody here thinks that it has to do with miscarriages or something along those lines, but keep that in the back of your mind, because I sure did, and it was worth it. We also discover that Ricky, our boy Ricky over here, is dating who? Oh, Sky. This bitch. He's dating Sky, which Sky also makes a note to everybody that maybe she's just gonna try for another baby and see how that goes. So that's interesting. Avery discovers that she can leave the house for 3 nights out of the entire month and not lose her right to Hawthorne House, so she goes to True North. It turns out that that is a vacation home that she owns now through the Hawthorne estate. Going to True North, because if you think about it, Sky's compass said so that you always find True North. So they go to True North. At True North, they find a letter between, so the Sky's bedroom and Zara's bedroom from when they were like teenagers, young adults, is connected through a secret passageway between the 2 closets. And in the secret passageway, you find this note that essentially was like, you stole him from me, whatever, I'll never forgive you for that. Very sus. It's in Zara's handwriting. I don't remember why we know that, but we know that it's in Zara's handwriting, so we can assume that Sky stole someone from Zara, which seems very Zara behavior. We then find a photo of all of the boys and girls. We've got Toby, I believe, Zara and Sky, and one other gentleman. They take that photo down to the lodge to ask around, see if anybody knows who this other guy is, and it turns out that it is Jake Nash. Now, if the name Nash sounds familiar to you, that is because, again, guess what? Guess what? It's one of the boys' fathers. It's Nash's dad, because, again, Sky is so good at naming her children. So Jake Nash apparently slept with or knew both Zara and Sky, and also is the father of Nash Hawthorne. He, as soon as, I believe, as soon as Sky conceived, Tobias Hawthorne sent his ass away. He said, get the fuck out. We also find out, and I don't really, the context here is a little bit crazy, but I really wanted to mention it. We find out that John Oren, head of security, super serious John Oren, had an affair with Zara. That's crazy, right? They like slept together? Anyway, because if you remember, Zara's on her second husband, Constantine. Oh, and we also find out, so Grayson gets drunk and decides to show up to talk to his daddy. And we found out that Sheffield Grayson thinks that Toby set the fire intentionally to quote-unquote burn it all down. He had bought a bunch of accelerant prior and had also been heard saying that he was going to burn it all down, and so most people think that Toby did set the fire on purpose, and that the Hawthorns covered it up and blamed Kaylee Rooney instead. It's then revealed that when Mallory Laughlin is talking about they always take our babies, they always kill our babies, they always kill my babies always die, whatever she saughters there, my babies always die. It turns out that she was talking about more than that, because she had a child at the age of 16, and the Laughlins told her that child died. That child did not die. That child was in fact Toby. So Toby is actually a Laughlin. So Toby is Mallory Laughlin's son, and also Emily and Rebecca Laughlin's half-brother. Great. That's awesome. The Laughlins are also currently angry with Avery because she has implied that Toby is not dead, and they are very heartbroken over Toby's death, and so they're like, fuck you for that. And so these weird things keep starting to happen where like a cow heart is left in her bathroom or something, or in her bed. Things like that. Not harmless pranks, very concerning things. It also then gets leaked to the paparazzi that Avery has kind of proof that Toby is alive, and they can't figure out who it was until they do find out who it was, and it was Eli. Eli leaked it to the press, and Sky and Ricky are going to go to the press and talk about it, and so to quell that, Avery and Grayson decide to go and do their first like interview, one Hawthorne, one Avery, you know, let's talk about it. And they catch her in a trap talking about Toby. This is how they find out that the paparazzi know. They catch her in a trap to talk about Toby, and as a distraction, Grayson corners her and kisses her. Crazy. Then they send Libby Nash to Jake Nash to find out if he knows anything about everything that's going on, because he lives on an island somewhere far, far away. And Jake Nash gives them a letter that tells them to go to the security deposit box. They go to the security deposit box. Turns out that the first will, if you recall, the second will was a game for the boys. The first will was a game for Sky and Zara to bring them back together, to bring Toby back, like that was the whole thing. So the security deposit box has everything that Tobias knows about Toby and where he's been since he went missing. What we find out is that all of Toby's known locations that are in that security deposit box line up directly with all of the postcards that Avery's mother and her used to look at and dream about traveling to. All of those locations match exactly with Toby's last known locations. From what Tobias could gather, it turns out that Toby washed up on Rockaway Watch. Rockaway Watch being near Rockaway Watch Society. Crazy. And Sarah took care of him with a gentleman named Jackson Curry. If you don't remember, Sarah is Avery's mom. It really looks like Toby is Avery's dad, just like the way that this is lining up. And then it turns out that Sarah's name is not Sarah. It turns out that Sarah's name is actually Hannah Rooney, and she is Kaylee Rooney's sister. Because Toby writes a postcard. Turns out also that the postcards had invisible ink on them. Avery was able to read through this dramatic love story and discovers that secret. Basically, Sarah was mad at Toby at first, but then they fell in love, and Toby was like, I feel really bad about that, whatever. It also turns out that the Rooney family are like drug lords, and Hannah, Sarah lady, escaped. She like left to go make her life something better. After finding all of this out from Jackson Curry, and then leaving to go back to the Hawthorne house so that she does not risk losing her inheritance, Avery's plane is bombed. And Avery's in the hospital. She's then like drastically moved to the Hawthorne house at a pull from Alyssa without anybody really tuning in on it, and definitely risking Avery dying, but it was because it was to protect the inheritance. Alyssa, I'm concerned about you. She gets fishier and fishier as time goes on. She's just been weird this whole time, and kind of more background character than she was in the first book. It appears to be that Sky and Ricky bombed them, and also during, if you remember that charity event in which Ricky and Sky were there, crazy, Avery manages to get a beer bottle from him and gets Alyssa to do a DNA test, and Avery is, in fact, you are the father. Ricky is, in fact, her dad, which is very confusing because all of these hints and stuff lead Avery to believe that somebody believed that she was Toby's biological child. So Avery is sort of in and out, basically, while she's trying to recover from this attempted bombing, and as she's finally able to walk again, Thea comes through this secret passageway and basically kidnaps Avery. She lets Avery know, hey, they have Rebecca and I need you to come with me. Who is they? What do they need? Whatever. So Avery goes with her, and it then is drugged, she's roofied, and she comes to and is tied to a chair, and who has kidnapped her? None other than Sheffield Grayson. Grayson has kidnapped her in the hopes that it will then draw Toby out of hiding, because Toby has been in hiding basically this whole time. He did leave a note for Avery that said stop looking for me early on, and Avery didn't because she doesn't know how to mind her own business. Sheffield is hoping that in kidnapping Avery that he will now draw Tobias out, because Toby still thinks that Avery is Toby's biological daughter, which we know is not true based on the DNA test done on Avery from Alyssa. Sheffield tells Avery, no, I did a DNA test. I know that you're Toby's daughter. But Avery says, no, I'm not, bestie. Also, where did you get DNA from me? Well, he got it from Melly. Sweet baby girl Melly. She's an idiot. Melly is the maid, if you don't know, and she had a romantic relationship with Nash, kind of, not really that important, and she's like a trusted maid. She's been a part of the Hawthorne process this whole time, and to the point that I thought she was a side character, so here she is playing an important role, and now I know better. Melly comes out of the shadows from behind Sheffield and says, I got him the DNA test. It was me. I got him the DNA test. And so then Avery's like trying to do math here. Like, you know that gif of that lady where she's like doing math? That's Avery. Because she's like, bestie, what? Huh? Hello? So it turns out that Melly got the job at the Hawthorne house to find out who's related to Toby. She also got her brother a job at the Hawthorne house. Who's her brother, you may be wondering? Oh, it's Eli, because of course it's fucking Eli, this guy. But the whole kidnapping Avery and like bombing the plane and all of that, that was never Melly's plan. She had found out that Sheffield Grayson also wanted these answers, or that's what she thought, and so she joined him with Eli to try and find out who is related to Toby. Now, she got the DNA from none other than her little half-sister, Eve. Mysteries upon mysteries. Sheffield is about to shoot Avery when Melly then shoots Sheffield, who's now dead. Toby shows up. He's like, yeah, actually, Evelyn is my daughter, biologically, but Avery, you're low-key also my daughter, 100% believe it, but also not biologically, but also like in my heart. Melly is basically like, you should have the old man should have picked Evelyn over Avery, like you abandoned her, whatever, because when Toby was out partying and stuff, he slept around with a lot of women, and Melly's mother, Eli's mother, Evelyn's mother was one of them. Evelyn also, Eve, looks exactly like Emily, and that is something to keep in mind for later. Basically, Melly's like, what are you gonna do for her? She needs to go to Hawthorne House with Avery, and Toby says she should never, ever, ever set foot in Hawthorne House for the rest of her life. Not once. I will take care of her. Do not worry about it. Take me to her, but do not, for the rest of her life, let her step foot in Hawthorne House. She will be in danger. He tells Toby, he tells Avery, again, you've always been my daughter, I love you. Avery says, I have one more question. She pulls out this necklace. The necklace that she pulls out is a necklace that Toby left for Sarah, saying, you know how much this is worth. And Avery has just been carrying it around, assuming it is worth like a ton of money, and also just not really sure what the complexities are here and why this is relevant, but has been carrying it around, wondering about this mystery. Toby goes, where'd you get that? Avery explains, and Toby goes, cool, takes it from her and runs. He leaves. He says, goodbye, don't come find me. Hee hee. Jump off into the distance. Yep. And that's the end of... No, it's not. That's not the end. Because the end is also that Avery then decides that she's going to choose Jameson. Because if you don't remember in the first book, she was like, Grayson or Jameson, which of these emotionally fucked up boys do I want in my heart? I was telling Art that these books read like Otome. The boys are all Otome dating game tropes. All of them, all 4 of them, are like very specific tropes. Anyway, so that's what we have here. That's what we get left off with. Avery's dad is in fact Ricky, who sucks. Is he still dating Sky? Unknown. Who's Eve? Does she matter? What did Toby do with that necklace? And are we gonna get it back? Are we gonna get more answers? What's happening here? This is all very fucking suspicious. What's going on? You know? Am I right? And that's it. That's the end of book 2. We've got book 3, and again I think a 4th book next year, so obviously not out, but I am currently 75% into book 3, have lots of thoughts, cannot wait to put my red string up here for it, but I'm gonna go. And on that note, just like I did in the last video, I'm just gonna zoom you guys in on the wall while I say my goodbyes. As always, I post on Tuesdays and Thursdays every single week at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. I also would love it if you would like and subscribe and share if you enjoyed this video. If you didn't enjoy this video, I'm sorry. I've been dreaming of making it, so I'm having a really good time with it and with the process of it, even though my camera keeps giving me issues every time I make these videos. And I think that's it. I will see you guys next week. Don't forget to take your meds, drink your water, and do something today to take care of yourselves, like, you know, secretly hiding that you are adopted and also have an estranged daughter that nobody knows about and claiming this random kid is your... Don't do those things. Actually, I'm kidding. Don't do any of those things. All right. Okay, thanks. Bye.